homeschool mom of 5. Oh, I do see it. Okay, sorry. I got distracted by the numbers. I've been homeschooling for 3 years and recently discovered Notgrass with middle school history, and I absolutely adore it. My son loves it. He was even asking, could he come up and tell everyone how much he loves it? And we're not going to let that happen. So, but yes, I discovered it on accident almost. I saw some pictures, or it might have even, I'm on Instagram a lot. I saw an ad, but I hadn't heard of it. And so I clicked on everything I could and spent hours looking at every inch of the website. And then here we are. So I'm excited.
Thank you, Toshiba. That's so encouraging. Really appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So, Mom, why don't you tell us some about how you wrote From Adam to Us and what your goal is?
Okay. Well, I write history because I'm married to Ray Notgrass and because I'm Charles Leland Boyd's daughter, because he loved history and took us everywhere when I was a kid on his 4.5 days of vacation a year. He took us all over the place. And so that's why I love history, partly. And then I had wonderful experiences with fabulous teachers of history. But with From Adam to Us, what I want to happen is for families to see what God has done since he made the world. And I love that we were able to write about the whole world. It's not just Western Civ, like what I got in college. It's the whole world. And I love how it shows the value of all people. That's a key value that we have at Notgrass History, is that we want to tell everybody's story in a very respectful and honest way, but always honoring God. And so that's the reason we read Bible history through it, so that you can know maybe what's happening in China while you find out what happens to Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and Joseph, etc. So I love that we were able to read Bible history all the way through, and that even after we get past the times of the Bible, we can continue to honor God and his word with the Christian perspective of it. And one other thing, we do this curriculum the same way we do America the Beautiful, in that in a particular unit, one lesson is a story, a true story from world history. One is daily life of some place at that time. One is a person who lived at the time. One is a place that people have built that was historically significant at that time. And then the other one is probably the one that people find most unusual. And that is that the other lesson is some amazing place that God created that was historically significant at a certain time period. So that, you know, that's the basic outline of what we were trying to do with From Adam to Us. And I can tell, Toshiba, from your Instagram page just how much you want to honor God by your life and in his family. And I was so blessed just by looking at that.
Oh, I appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. John tells me, our son John is being our tech guy in Missouri, and our great Titus is my tech guy in the room with me right now. But John tells me it's time to look at the slides. So this, we have found that people really understand our curriculum well if we just quickly walk them through a unit. So I'm going to walk you through Unit 26 from Adam to Us. All our curriculum, if it's for a whole year, it has 30 units. And for curriculum that's for grades 1 through 4, we do 3 lessons a unit. But beginning in 5th grade and through high school, we do 5 lessons a unit. And the units from Adam to Us are in chronological order. Each unit covers a specific time period and highlights different aspects of world history and culture at various places in the world. At the beginning of each unit, we have a map with push pins on it, and those push pins tell where the lessons from this unit took place. The glue that holds a unit together is the time period. So this time period is 1851 to 1900. So our biography is Queen Victoria, who is reigning over a British Empire, and the sun never sets on that British Empire at this time. Our story for this week is the Crimean War. Our daily life is called Japan's Open Door, and that is the story of how American Admiral Perry went to Japan and just continued basically trying to knock on their door. Japan was closed to the rest of the world at the time until Admiral Perry went there and just wouldn't say no. And Japan opened the door of their country and began to trade with other parts of the world. Our man-made landmark this time is the Eiffel Tower and in Paris. And our God's Wonder is unusual in that it's not just about one place. Other examples of God's wonders are, we do the Nile River when we're talking about the pyramids. We do the Mediterranean Sea when we're talking about the ancient Phoenicians. But this was a time when gold was discovered in various parts of the world. And because of advances in transportation, there were gold rushes, not just in California, but also in other places, or in Australia, for example. So our God's Wonder this time is the gold that God created in various parts of the world. So show me the next slide, John. At the end of every lesson in From Adam to Us, we have suggested activities. And Notgrass History doesn't see our curriculum as a taskmaster, certainly not a brutal taskmaster that tells mothers what they have to do. What we've tried to do is just provide you with some rich resources, because we know you are the smart one who knows what's best for your children. So, John, your Word document or your Write document is on top of the list. So can you move that so I can see what you're showing? Okay, thank you. So at the end of a lesson, you will have some of these activities. You don't have them all every day. And you don't have to do them all, but you can pick and choose. So there's the opportunity to do creative writing and reading. We have literature titles that we recommend that a student reads as they go through From Adam to Us. There's a total of 10. So after this lesson, I don't remember what book it is, but if you're reading the literature, then you would read the next chapter or two in the literature. We always do a okay, John's telling me we're going to see specific assignments in a minute, but the kinds of assignments at the end of a lesson are assignments in the primary source book that we publish to go with From Adam to Us. It's called Our Creative World. With every curriculum we write, beginning in 1st grade, we always do some sort of primary source book. So it's called Our Creative World in this instant. There are map assignments after some lessons, timeline lesson assignments after some lessons. We offer the option of a student workbook and a lesson review. And so we remind the student every day to complete that assignment. About 3 times a week, there's a Bible study. There's vocabulary about 3 times a week, creative writing assignments a couple of times a week, and when appropriate, assignments in the books. So here you see the first, one of the openings in the lesson on Queen Victoria, which is the first lesson in this unit. And as you see, we think students learn a lot from photographs and illustrations and historic etchings and paintings. We also created all of the maps that are in From Adam to Us. We created specifically to go with this curriculum. You'll see on the right here that at the end of every lesson, we have a Bible verse. So in the beginning of From Adam to Us, since it is a world history from creation to the present, we do go through Bible history as we're going through the history of what happened in other places. But even after that, every single lesson ends in a very appropriate, very carefully chosen Bible verse. And then after the Bible verse are the suggested assignments for that day. Today, they're going to read, the student has the opportunity to read excerpts from the journals of David Livingstone, who was traveling in Africa during the reign of Queen Victoria. Here's an example of an opening from the timeline. So after the Queen Victoria lesson, we give the student one sentence to write in the timeline and tell them what page that's on and where to write it. So at the end of the course, the student is helped to create their own timeline. Beginning in 5th grade, we offer a choice of review material. The parent can choose to purchase it and use it or not. It doesn't, the student's going to learn either way. But a lot of parents like to have some review material. And because children have different strengths and because different ages can use this curriculum together, it is designed for 1 year in grade 5, 6, 7, or 8. But students in any of those grades can use it. And then occasionally we even have students from other grades to use it also. But it's designed specifically for 1 year in grade 5, 6, 7, or 8. But we offer either the choice of either a worksheet book, we call that the student workbook, and there's a worksheet per lesson, or we offer 5 questions per lesson, and that's in the lesson review. Both of those have review questions on the literature and a test every Friday. So here you see the kinds of activities that you might choose from at the end of a lesson. After the Queen Victoria lesson, there's a Bible study, a vocabulary, and a literature assignment. So they're ready to read chapter 1 in the Chess Tree Oak. The second day of this unit, the lesson is the Crimean War. And let me say something about the units. We do 30 units, and a typical school year is 36 weeks. We figure that way you have 6 whole weeks of wiggle room when you use our curriculum, so it's easy to finish it. So after the Crimean War, there's an assignment of Florence Nightingale's letter to read. There is an idea of something to do in the map book, and then other possible assignments too. Here's a sample from the map book, so that after the Crimean War lesson, the student would have specific things to do on this map, which might be drawing, tracing, coloring, and that sort of thing. So that's a peek inside the map book. Our next day in this unit, the student would learn about Japan's open door. Again, they have in our creative world, and this time they have a creative writing idea. Inside our creative world, in addition to the primary source documents, we also have some examples of art and games and other cultural pieces in our creative world. The title of our creative world is to express that this book is filled with things people have created throughout history in various time periods, whether writing or art or some other aspect of daily life. Once a week, we have a family activity, and that is a craft, a recipe, a party, a play, something like that to do that is fun for the whole family. Some families choose to do this on a family night. And this time it is a craft project related to the Eiffel Tower. We give you all the very specific instructions in how to do that. And this shows you the opening where they read those instructions. On the last day of this unit, as I said, it is God created gold. And this day, in addition to other kinds of assignments, the student is reminded to take their test if they're using the student workbook or the lesson review. We also have high school curriculum, and I think John didn't mean to show that. Okay, so Toshiba, I did that really fast, but I hope it's helpful to your followers.
Oh, it is, because I get asked sometimes like full length questions, and I am a like chunk by chunk personality. So I did as much as he was going to finish for this year, but I'm like, I didn't even get to the second book. And sometimes
okay, totally okay.
So I don't always have the answers, but I'm like, but I'm showing them a lot of the times, like on my YouTube, the table of content, so they can see that it's coming, but it's not exactly what, answering a specific question. I'm like, I'm not known for, I know a lot of American history, but I don't know a lot of world history. So I'm like, we're going to do this together. We're going to learn together, especially from a biblical perspective, because we bought a book, this book before we found a history curricula, and it's like the everything you want to know for middle schooler about world history. So sometimes if he finishes early, which is not often, I will tell him, okay, so we're going to do God's plan for what the world was, and then we'll see a secular version of that. And sometimes he finds some interesting finds, like, that doesn't sound right, or that's not the way I think of it. And I'm wanting him to use a little bit of logic to try to understand. I'm like, history was written by different people. So get different people's perspectives and then put that story together, but for us with God in mind, and not with prehistory or pre-world, or with, not with the secular ideas. And so he's trying to, that's kind of what he's learned the most about middle school, trying to take what someone is just not, cramming information, but now synthesizing that and what that meant for that time and stuff like that. So, I mean, he's loving it. It's still his favorite subject, which I'm pleased, because
good.
You're a homeschool mom. You know how hard it is to find something.
Absolutely. Yes, I do. And something you said makes me want to mention, we're often asked what, yes, a mom will say something to the effect of, yes, I know you are coming from a Christian perspective, but tell me more, like what denomination, what perspective. And our answer to that is, we have worked really hard to just say, this is what the Bible says. If we failed at that and you see that, please tell us. And the next time we do an update, we'll fix it, because that is our intention, is to just, what does the Bible say? Just tell the truth without any, being pulled by what any particular group thinks, except that in a Bible believing kind of way. I hope I said that clearly.
It's clear. I mean, I looked for history with the biblical worldview. I'm not looking for a secular worldview. I'm not looking for, because I'm a little bit of a nerd, and science is my thing, but sometimes it's hard to find curricula that is in science. Sometimes that is, I love the ones that are Christian, but I also love the ones that don't choose that matters. They talk about creationism and they talk about evolution. They talk about learning about biology doesn't have to be very functional in either vein. Let's just learn about the systems of the body, which I love that. But we have another Bible curriculum that we use that I really love, that we always say this every day. So my kids are, learning this, that the Bible is the history book of the world. And I love that it says that, because then when we add, the history that's taken place that's outside of the Bible, then it makes it for us make more sense.
Yeah.
And so the Bible is our guide. Right. That's not everyone's guide, but it's our guide. And this is the way that we're going to see it through, because it only makes sense through God's eyes. I'm not trying to make it, I don't know the term, but I like that this is a gentle approach, because when we see it through the eyes of God, we don't see it and take everything personal. And then it makes it to understand from a perspective of, this was first world, this is what happened. Or even if it happened in America, that this was happening at that time and it's not now. And that men making decisions, bad or good, has no factor on a sovereign God. And so my kids understand that really well. And I love it, because I don't think I did my kids are 8 and 9 and 11. And I'm glad that that's the foundation, that this history goes along with our foundation of the Bible.
That's great. We have tried very hard. I like your word, gentle approach. Some Christian curriculum, how do I put it? Some curriculum that comes with a Christian perspective, I think, tries to speak for God and come to conclusions that we don't know. We're not God. We're not sovereign, and we have work to be careful that we don't do that. That we don't make him say things. Frankly, I don't like billboards that have some statement somebody make up and then they sign it God. I mean, I think that ought to be his words. We can put words in his mouth. As good as those as the perspective may be on those, I just think let God speak for himself. And
yes. That's how we agree. I agree with that too. So sometimes they're like, well, what do you think? And so, even in my regular life, if my friends, my background is psychology, if they call me for advice, I'm going, do you want to know what my opinion is, or do you want to know what the Bible says about how to fix it? Like am I being best friend right now, or am I being a spiritual guide? Because I can answer both. I would like to just tell you what Jesus says and not infiltrate my I love you big sister mentality. And the same with my kids with this. I'm like, I would love to tell you the minds of the men who were doing I don't know their minds, and I don't always know the mind of God, but I do know, I can point them to the scripture where it says for sure, your thoughts are not my thoughts, saith the Lord. And so I always try to preface every type of advice I give through that, that I am not him. I strive to be like him, but the way that he loves us through grace and through mercy, I am human. I am striving, but history, that's why it's always been uncomfortable for me until I became a Christian. I was like, oh, okay, now it makes so much more sense.
Well,
I don't have to agree. I don't have to be upset. I can just understand the sign of the times. I understand that my God is sovereign, and I'm just glad that I'm living in this era of history and no other one.
Yeah, I take a lot of comfort in Acts 17:26, which says that we're all descended from Adam, and God decided when we'd live and where we'd live. And I can't quote it right now. I should be able to, because I've thought about it so much, but he is sovereign, and we don't have to understand why things are the way they are at a certain time. I trust him with the big picture and with the little bitty details. I could talk to you all afternoon. This is because obviously we have a whole lot in common. Do you have any other things you'd like us to discuss before we go? As I told you, as John told you, I do have another webinar. I think maybe we've learned not to plan one at 2 and one at 3. That's probably not a good idea, but we did. So what else? Is there anything else that you want to be sure we bring up while we're together?
I don't think so. I mean, like I said, I combed through every inch of your website at the time of this, so I thought it was very thorough. I think that just sometimes when you have people, like I have all these friends on Instagram and YouTube that I've never met, but some of them I talk to regularly through that medium. And so if they do ask, sometimes I will private message them, or I'll say, hey, do you want me to, you know, show you a snapshot of the picture of what it looks like? But it's usually that they're wondering if it covers specific things. And I'm like, let me take you to the table of content. So will that be enough without, you know, showing you? And or I'll say, go to the website where you can see the whole thing other than my snapshot, obviously from my camera. Yeah. But I mean, I love it. I am like an open and go kind of person. And that's what I love the most. I love that I can open it and I can go. And, yes. So I think that's the best part, that it's biblical worldview. It's what I was looking for. It's open and go. You don't need to have any specific background or long instructions on how to use it. My 6th grader likes to do it alone because, you know, I nitpick at every fact. I'm like, hey, did you get that? Did you get this? He does not enjoy that. He loves the lesson reviews. He loves the mapping. So I'm so happy that we got it. And I'm telling everyone every chance I get.
Well, I really appreciate it. I want to say just real quick about the table of contents, because I want to explain something that I didn't know till I started writing history. You know, you hear all kinds, history has become so political in the last few years. You know, my first time to write a history curriculum, that would be, I mean, I had helped write a Tennessee history before, but my first one that was nationwide was America the Beautiful, and that was in 2010 and 11. And in the 8-9 years since then, just the environment in which history is discussed has just changed radically. And so concern table of contents, any history writer decides what they're going to write about, because you know, if you say this is world history, it is not every minute of every person who has ever lived in every place, because, you know, my house wouldn't hold all the books if you did. So we work hard to tell what we believe is the most important as best we can within a limited amount of space that a child can take in. But we try to get a balance of people that you can emulate, and good things people have done with still telling some of the bad, you know. So we have learned that tables of contents are very, very interesting. And we talk and talk and talk and talk. I mean, you wouldn't believe how long it takes us to do a table of contents. That's really a whole lot of the work is done when you get the table of contents done, because then you can just go get about the business of it. But that is a really tough decision. Who are your biographies going to be? What stories are you going to tell? You know, so we work really hard at that. And that's another thing. If you feel like we really left somebody out, we should have included. We're very open, because we want to provide useful tools. That's what we see ourselves as doing, is providing useful tools for brilliant homeschooling moms to take and use the way they know is best for their kids.
I think you're doing a great job. We should understand that it's not exhaustive. I mean,
yeah,
No, no curriculum is, but
Right.
like when I went to Barnes and Noble, like we have a book, he couldn't find it, but I think he finished it on the Stonehenge. He just wanted to know more. So then there are specific books on that where he could read to his heart's desire. But sometimes some of the fiction or his, the historical fiction, he's not into. But some kids, my daughter is. So there, I like that flexibility where I can get a nonfiction book for him about one thing, and then he will love the Golden Goblet where he's like, I like that it's flexible enough to do that, and that's
that is great. That makes me think of one more thing, and then I really probably ought to go. But because a child can just go on and on for a long time on Stonehenge, for example, we like doing our curriculum where you cover a whole subject in a year. So America the Beautiful for this age, you go from how Native people were living before 1492 to the present in a year. And then or if you want to take longer, it's absolutely fine. The way we've written it, it can be done in a year. And then we do world history the same way. And we feel like that's important because we do think it's really good for a student to have some exposure to all the major things. Just like in art, you don't want your child's every photograph to be a horse. I mean, they will grow in their art if they try different media, if they try different subjects, So anyway, that's part of our philosophy of why we do everything in a year. And with the number of lessons we do, it gives you time to take off on Stonehenge or the pyramids or whatever you want to do. But anyway, I love talking to you. Be glad you get some time. I really do hope you'll stay in touch, Toshiba, and I really appreciate what you're doing. And I am amazed that you can be sitting there calmly this afternoon with two sets of twins and a singleton. The ages, I never heard that term singleton before, but I read it on your Instagram. That's a great way to say that. But
I don't think I knew the term before, but when I had the two sets of twins, he needed to feel, I was like, my doctor mentioned where you have a singleton. I was like, is that what it's called? Because he's definitely need to be called something having two sets of twins as siblings. Yes. And they have come up. You've seen my eyes divert because they're trying to sneak in like it's my own, like it's a YouTube where they can come in. I'm like, no, don't do it.
If you didn't mind them being on camera, I would love to say hello to them.
Oh, no. They're still working though. And so I'm like, you can come in the video as long as you're done with school. They're not done.
Sure. Okay.
They're just listening closely to see what we're doing. But yeah, another time maybe.
This has been delightful. And like I said, I could go all afternoon, but I really better go so I can get ready for the one at 3:00.
Okay, and I told a lot of people about it, so hopefully they'll log in at 3 and then they'll jump on and get even more.
Okay. That sounds great. Thanks, Toshiba. God bless you.
Bye-bye. Okay.